Alaska, winter of 1925. Endless white. No roads, no plains, just frozen wilderness stretching for 1,000 miles. And at its edge, the small frontier town of Nome, home to barely 10,000 souls, cut off from the world by walls of ice and snow. When the sun vanished for weeks, people joked that Alaska didn't have winter. Winter had Alaska. But this time, it wasn't a joke. Something deadly was coming. It started quietly, a few children coughing, struggling to breathe. Then, one by one, they began to die. Diphtheria, a disease that strangled children from the inside. Dr. Curtis Welch checked his supplies and froze. He had only 300,000 units of antitoxin serum. He needed 1.1 million. Without it, every child in Nome could be dead within weeks. The nearest serum was in Anchorage, over 1,000 miles away. No roads, no plains, just howling wind, frozen seas, and darkness. Mail sleds took 25 days to cover that distance. The children didn't have 25 days. So the governor gave an impossible order to move the serum across the Alaskan wilderness by relay. 20 mushers, 150 sled dogs, 674 miles of deathly ice, and less than 6 days to do it. At 50 degrees below zero, metal shattered, and breath froze midair. Wind chill reached 85 below, and the most dangerous part, the Norton Sound, 42 miles of unstable sea ice that could break apart without warning. Cross it wrong, and you were gone. That's when the governor called Leonhard Seppala, Alaska's most legendary musher. The telegram was short. "We need you to cross the Sound." Most men would have refused. Seppala didn't even hesitate. "I'll do it." And he had a secret weapon, a dog named Togo. Togo wasn't born a hero. He was the runt of his litter, small, sickly, impossible to train. Seppala had tried to give him away more than once when he was a kid. Too small, too wild, useless, he'd said. But Togo refused to be left behind. He broke through fences, jumped through windows, and chased Seppala's sled for miles through the snow, crying to run with the team. Finally, Seppala gave in, and what he saw changed everything. The runt could outrun, outthink, and outlast every other dog. He wasn't just strong, he was brilliant. He could sense danger in storms before they came. For years, Seppala and Togo became legends of the North. They crossed hundreds of miles of frozen wilderness together, man and dog, bonded by trust. By 1925, Togo was 12 years old, practically ancient for a sled dog. But age didn't slow him down, and this time Seppala's life and thousands of others would depend on him. January 31st, the serum left Anchorage by train to the town of Nenana, where the first musher took off into a white abyss. One by one, teams ran through blizzards and darkness, passing the serum hand to hand like a lifeline. Meanwhile, Seppala and Togo left Nome, racing east to meet them halfway. But the storm came early. A blizzard from the Bering Sea, 85 below, zero visibility. Seppala couldn't see his own hand in front of him, but Togo didn't need to see. He could feel the trail, sense the direction, as if the ice itself spoke to him. Through roaring winds and white nothingness, Togo led. Seppala could only trust him, because if Togo was wrong, they'd both die. Then, out of the storm, another figure appeared, another musher, Henry Ivanov, shouting above the wind. "I have the serum." Seppala stared in disbelief. He hadn't expected to meet him so soon. He tied the serum to his sled and then realized something terrifying. They were on the wrong side of Norton Sound. To get back to Nome, they have to cross 42 miles of breaking sea ice in the middle of a blizzard. Most men would have waited, but Seppala looked at Togo, and Togo looked back. That look said everything. They ran. The crossing was hell. The ice moaned and split beneath them. Black water opened in cracks. Seppala's eyelashes froze shut, but Togo kept running, pulling the sled across the shifting ice. Behind them, the ice cracked with a sound like thunder. Seconds later, the sheet they'd crossed tore away and drifted into the sea. 30 seconds slower, and they'd have vanished forever. Then, disaster. Open water, 30 feet across. They were trapped on a drifting ice floe, moving away from shore. The Serum, the only hope for Nome, was about to be lost. Togo stared at the gap, reading the movement of ice and wind. Then he leapt. Togo jumped the gap, pulling the line tight. The sled jerked, and one by one the entire team followed him across the open water. They made it. Barely. After 84 miles through the worst storm in decades, they reached land. Togo had done the impossible. When Seppala finally reached Golovin, he'd covered more than 200 miles, more than any other musher in the relay. His dogs were half dead with exhaustion. Frost caked in their fur. But Togo stood tall, still alert, still ready. He passed the Serum to Charlie Olson, whispered, "Good luck," and watched the sled vanish into the storm. Olson pushed through the night, handing off to Gunner Kaysen near Bluff. The storm had grown worse. Winds reached 90 miles an hour, enough to lift dogs off the ground. Kaysen's team fought the storm until he couldn't tell sky from earth. He thought he'd miss the next stop entirely, so he kept going. At the front of Kaysen's team was Balto, another of Seppala's dogs, younger, strong, steady. Through the storm, Balto ran blind, following only his instincts. After 53 miles, Kaysen stumbled into Nome, half frozen, Serum intact. The epidemic was over. Nome was saved. The news exploded across America. Balto the hero dog saves Nome. Balto became a national sensation. Statues were built, parades were held, Hollywood called. But few people knew the truth, that Balto had run the final 50 miles, while Togo had led the hardest 300. Seppala never complained. He smiled when people praised Balto. He loved all his dogs, heroes, every one of them. But alone he would whisper to Togo, "You were the one who saved them all." In the years that followed, Togo grew old. His paws were scarred, his joints stiff. But when the wind howled, he would lift his head, remembering the ice, the storm, the run that changed everything. He died a hero, though few knew his name. In 1925, a statue of Balto was placed in Central Park. The plaque read, "Dedicated to the indomitable spirit of the sled dog that carried the Serum to Nome." But not everyone agreed with the story that statue told. Decades later, historians began uncovering the truth, the full relay route, the records, the testimonies. They found that Togo had run more than 10 times farther than Balto, that Seppala's journey across the Norton Sound had been the key to saving Nome. At last, Togo's name began to rise again. In 2001, Time magazine named Togo one of the most heroic animals of all time. In 2011, a statue of Togo was placed in Seward, Alaska. This time, the plaque told the truth. Togo, the true hero of the 1925 Serum Run. In 2019, Disney released a film called Togo, finally telling the true story. But it was 94 years too late. While some say both Balto and Togo carried the same spirit, courage, loyalty, and the will to save. One finished the race, the other made it possible. But the comparison isn't even close. Togo ran 260 miles. Balto ran 53. Togo crossed Norton Sound twice in a blizzard on breaking ice. Balto ran after the worst of the storm had passed and on clearer trail. Togo was 12 years old, like an 80-year-old human running an ultra-marathon through a hurricane. Balto was young and strong, and yet for nearly a century the world knew Balto's name and forgot Togo's. When people asked Seppala what made Togo special, he said softly, endurance, intelligence, and heart. He was more than a dog. He was my friend. Long after Seppala was gone, the legend of Togo lived on, carried in stories, in wind, in snow. Because true heroes don't need fame. They just need to run. Today, when winter falls on Alaska and the aurora dances in the sky, some say they can still see the outline of a dog running across the frozen sea, gray and white, eyes bright, heart unbroken. The dog who saved Nome, the forgotten hero of the North. Togo.